Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Williamson, and today I want to show you RetopoFlow 2.0. RetopoFlow is the retopology add-on that we've built and sold via the Blender market for quite a few years now. And it has been through a lot of different changes in the past. It started out as just one tool called Contours, then we released a second tool called Polystrips, and then we combined those tools into one tool called RetopoFlow, which brings us to where we are today, 2 years later, where we have taken the RetopoFlow tools and redesigned them from the ground up. We quite literally went back to the drawing board, which I know you can't see in this video, but it is there, and redesigned not only how each of the individual tools work and what they do, but also how all of those tools work together. In RetopoFlow 1.x, we had a lot of issues where the tools were disjointed, they didn't work together. Each tool was quite literally its own mode, such that you would work with the Contours tool, we would finish your work, then you would switch to the Polystrips tool, then the Polypen, and none of them worked cohesively. And the problem with this was because no artist works only with tool A, then switches to tool B, and then goes to tool C. It's a back and forth constantly. You know, when you're sculpting, you're constantly switching from the draw brush to the crease brush to the smooth brush, back to the draw brush. It's a constant back and forth of all of these different tools. And so we realized that we had to rebuild and redesign RetopoFlow from the ground up if we really wanted it to do what it set out to do, which was to remove the pain and the tedious nature of retopology. I'm one of those weirdos that loves the retopo process, even in its dullest, most mundane technical form. I like tweaking individual vertices, I like getting that perfect edge flow, but I'm not very normal in that sense, and so we realized that we wanted to make a good, cohesive artist tool for Blender that would make retopology fun. And I hope that we've done it. So here's RetopoFlow 2.0. Whenever you start any of the RetopoFlow tools, you're going to be placed into a retopology mode, or RetopoFlow mode. And this is basically a pseudo mode within Blender that we've built whereby all of our tools work cohesively, side by side. And it's kind of like sculpt mode, in theory, in that when you're retopologizing, you're only retopologizing. You don't need access to the regular mesh editing tools. You don't need access to the rendering tools. You're just doing the job at hand, which in this case is retopology. We now have these floating windows, which we can then access all of our settings, we can access our tools, and of course we have our model here. And typically, when you're doing retopology, you're going to have a high-res sculpted or imported model. It might be a scanned asset, it might be a sculpted model, or something else, but you've got a high-resolution source object that you want to generate the retopology for. And one of the main things with RetopoFlow 2.0, and this held true with RetopoFlow 1, is that everything you do is snapped to the surface. So let's say that we want to start by recreating the geometry of his arm. Well, this is where we'd use the Contours tool, which we can either hit Q to activate, or we can just click on the floating UI, and then you just hold down Control, left click and drag across the arm, and you have a contour. You'll notice it shows the count of 12. We could go ahead and adjust that count if we wish, so maybe we'll go ahead and decrease it down to 10. And then let's go ahead and insert another one right at the elbow. And it has extruded that loop, and everything is snapped to the surface and attempted to draw on top of it. You'll also notice that I have symmetry enabled, and so we have the symmetrized view over here. So let's go ahead and do that again. Let's draw another stroke, and another stroke, and another stroke, and another stroke, and then we can press G and slide that selected loop. We can go ahead and select this one, slide it down a little bit. Maybe we want to shift it around. Or you know what? We didn't get very dense in here. You know, obviously this is not enough loops to recreate the entire arm, so why don't we just go ahead and cut across that. It'll insert a new one. Then we can cut across there. And then, you know what, let's go ahead and put in a new one in right here. And why don't we do one more right here. Oh, and then we got it at a bit of an angle, so let's rotate that around. And then you know what? A typical good rule of thumb is at any joint you've got 3 loops, so let's go ahead and add one more right there. And just like that, we have retopologized the bulk of his arm in a way that was not only fast, but also really, really effective. But that's just one tool. That's the contours tool. Many of you will have already been familiar with the contours tool. Basically, we've rebuilt it, everything, not only contours, but everything, to be a lot faster, a lot simpler. We've tried to update a lot of the algorithms on it, which I'm not even going to pretend to try and describe because that's not what I do. That is Dr. Denny's job. But all of these have been rebuilt to allow us to do a lot more things. You'll notice that when I select this, I can then hit Shift S, which gives me the rotate. I can hit S, gives me the shift controls, and I can hit G to slide the loop up and down. But there's a lot more we can do. Let's just say that we forgot to do this correctly, or maybe we just failed. So maybe we just go ahead and delete these vertices. And now we want to select this one, and we'll just bridge another loop right there, or extrude another loop. But now we have a problem in that we forgot to connect it up here. Well, that's okay, because we can just select these two, and we can hit F, and it'll bridge them. No problem. So why don't we go and grab this? Let's slide it down a little bit. Let's add one more loop right in here, and then we'll go back to contours. We'll rotate that around, slide it up. And now's the point that basically we've run out of cylindrical form to retopologize. So let's go ahead and let's switch to the next tool. Let's go to polystrips. So polystrips is designed to allow you to lay down rows of quads very quickly. So for example, I can go in here and I can just left click and drag while holding down control and insert that strip of quads. It's following a Bezier curve, which I can then manipulate after the fact. Everything snaps to the surface and all is fine and dandy. Well, in previous versions of RetopoFlow, the problem with this was that whenever you were done, such as if I do that, well, now it's just a strip of quads and we can't do anything with it. Well, thankfully in RetopoFlow 2, we simply right click and drag, select those, and it automatically fits a Bezier curve to the faces, which if we want to show that curve, we can simply enable draw curve under here and you'll see it visualized, but we don't really need it. We can now move these handles. We can grab the base handle. We can hold down Control and Shift and then click on the inner handle and scale that. And we can even modify the counts before or after the fact. So I can select these ones, modify those counts, decrease them. I can kind of do whatever I want. In this case, I didn't lay that strip out very well because it's not really doing a whole lot of good. Because really what I'd like is I'd like to have a strip right along here. So why don't I hold down Control, left click and drag from that face, and there we go. It's just nicely generated. But I don't quite have enough geometry in here to bring these across the pectoral, so let's go ahead and increase the segments. You notice it doesn't touch the end face, so no harm there. And that's great, but let's go ahead and bring this in. Why don't we do something like that? But you know what? We really ought to bring it all the way into the center. Well, since we have symmetry enabled, we can simply go right across the symmetry line, and there we are. It snaps right to it. We can pull this down, kind of reposition it. You will notice that this inner edge got a little bit messed up, but that's okay because we can fix that here with the next tool in just a moment. Let's go ahead and grab this guy here. Sometimes you will notice that the mesh handles will display below the surface. This is a bug that we're working on, so it will be fixed. Right now it's just a minor nuisance. All right, so we've laid out a couple of strips. Why don't we go ahead and do one more? We can just do something like this, put it across the surface, bring this one in just a little bit, tighten it up. And you'll notice we've got a total of 8 faces here. If we select this, we've got 6. So why don't we increase this one and decrease this one, just kind of spread the strain a little bit. And all right, that should work. So we've got some nice face loops. You know, we could continue on with this, but obviously we've got a lot of ground to cover. So let's switch to the polypen tool. The polypen tool is basically your polygon pen in that it enables you to create any geometry you want with absolute control. It is a slightly slower tool, but it's the one that gives you the control. So here I'm just using it to kind of select and grab individual vertices just to tweak things. But why don't we work within this area? You know, one of the ways that we would typically do this kind of geometry is, or this kind of area on the mesh, is we would turn this into a turning face. So this would kind of come down here, this might come up here, and then we just kind of extend this along. So why don't we just select this edge, hold down Control, and we now pre-visualize the mesh that's going to be created. So now I can just left click, and now while still holding down control, you'll notice that I first created a triangle, which if I remove control, you can see it there. So if you're doing low-res game assets, this is really handy. But typically, when you're working with all quads, you're going to want to turn that into a quad. So with that triangle selected, which it is because that was the last thing we created, we'd hold down control, we click again, and now it's a quad. And now you notice that the two edges that were just formed are already selected. So if I hold down control and hover over here, you'll see I get a triangle. If I hover over here, I get that one. So we can go in either direction that we want. So let's just bring this down to connect here. So left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, and then you'll notice here, if we hold down control and we're going from an edge that's selected into another one, it automatically fills a quad. So that makes it easy. Well, I didn't position this very well, so why don't we just kind of move some of these over a little bit, move some of those over there. Won't worry too much, we can reposition those later. And then let's go back and fill this area. So we're going to select this edge, we're going to control click, but there's a faster way to do that. Instead, let's undo this. We do have a full undo and redo support. Let's instead click this edge and just hover over that one. It'll fill the quad. And then, since we know that typically when you do stuff like that, you're going to want to be filling an area like that, we automatically select the next edge. So let's hold down control, and that one, and that one, and that one. Oh, and now we have a problem. We didn't estimate our counts here correctly, but that's okay. It's an easy problem to fix. Let's just select this edge, grab it down here, and snap it across those vertices, and then do that again, and it's automatically merged those together. If you don't want auto merge, simply disable the option right here, and you're good to go. Sweet, that's polypen. Well, let's now talk about strokes. So strokes is a filling tool, and the way that it works is this. You hold down control, you left click and drag, you draw a stroke, and it generates a stroke of edges, which you can then adjust the segment, just like you can polystrips. But where it gets really cool is, so we drew one stroke, well, why don't we draw another stroke while that's selected? And it will extrude across. Now our segments are the crossing ones, and we can do that. But you know what? Let's go the other way. Let's go here, and then let's go here, and then here, and then here, and here, and we can just continue that. We can, of course, at any point, change our direction, draw across here. It snaps to the symmetry line. We can fix that one vertex that was moved in. And then, you know what? We can even do crazy selections like this, where we grab this, and we extrude up. Sweet. Well, you know, that's pretty slick, because we could actually, let me redraw that. Doing that means that I can actually go ahead and fill this area pretty quick. But our counts are probably off. So we've got 4 here, and we have 6 here. Well, we can fix that. Let's go ahead and first jump ahead, and then we're going to come back to the strokes tool, because we're going to switch to the loops tool. The loops tool is very simple. It just adds, removes, and slides loops. So for example, if I want to add a loop, I hold down control, and I click, and then I click, and I click, and I click, and I click, and I click. I can add as many loops as I want, all snap to the surface. Everything you do snaps to the surface. Or I can, let me redo that. I can delete the loops. So I just hit X, delete the loops. Or I can use it for sliding loops. So I select one, hit G, or excuse me, S, and it will slide between the two. I can slide in either direction. You'll notice that it allows me to project the direction that it's going just a little bit. I can select this, slide it, and all we do to select loop is just hold down control and right click. And you know what, why don't we grab this, let's bring this into the center, it'll snap right there. Okay, so we wanted to fix our counts though. So within the strokes tool, we had 6 up here, or down here, and over here we had 4. So within the loops, why don't we just select this one, hit X, delete the loops, and then we've got 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, we need one more gone. So why don't we get rid of this guy, hit X, delete the loops, grab this, slide it in just a little bit. We'll slide this one back. And it doesn't have to be perfect, this is just a demo. All right, that'll work. So let's switch back to loops, which we can just press the hotkey of I. And let's select both of these. Let's select this, and let's select this. And then simply left click and drag with control across there, and it will automatically bridge those 2 loops, filling in with symmetry. But we can take that one step further. Why don't we take this guy, and let's just bridge across there. Oh, we have different counts. So you notice that here we have, we have 6 counts, and up here we also have 6. Let's see what I did. If I just bring this in, oh, I just drew to the wrong geometry. Notice up here, I've got the second one. It's 2, 2. So if I just draw across down to there, it'll automatically bridge those across. Or I can just do it in one step and I can go across right there, and it'll automatically fill all those. Now, it won't always fill these in perfectly, but that's okay, because at any time, we will be able to correct these by simply jumping down to the Relax tool. The Relax tool is exactly what it does, gives us a brush, and we simply left click and drag across this, and it will attempt to make all of these faces square. We can adjust the strength with Shift F. We can adjust the radius or the size with F, or Control F gives us the fall off. So if we simply do this, we can bring it in. We can then use the tweak tool by pressing T, and we can bring these into the center. Every now and then Relax will kind of cut some of those in. We can switch back to the loops tool, and let's just get rid of this extra loop in here. That was probably unnecessary. And then we can slide this one down just a touch. And there we go. We've already made really good progress on our retopology. So let's talk about the patch tool now. So the patch tool is pretty cool. It and strokes are pretty similar. They're both used for filling large areas. So what happens if I say select all of these edges? And you notice I get a pre-visualization of something going on. I'll deselect these two. And then I'll select this one, and then this one, and then this one. And you'll notice that something is going on, but I've got these yellow circles. These yellow circles are automatically detected corners based on this angle, which if I adjust, you'll notice it automatically removes some of those, and voila, fills my patch. Now, right now, it's just pre-visualized, so nothing's happened because it's all based on my selection. So if I deselect that, there we are. So let's go ahead and fill that. Sweet. This is good, but what if I want to fill an area all the way back like this? Well, let's switch back to the strokes tool, and I'm going to show something. So I'm going to select this area, and this may not be ideal geometry, but we're just going to fill that like that, just to give us an example. And then we're going to deselect that, and we're going to fill another stroke here. And then so we've got 7, and we've got 7. So let's switch back to patches, and we can just detect that. We can automatically increase the segments like so, and hit F. And you'll notice some of the things that happen here is that the segments are automatically detected or counted based on your selection. But if it's an area where you're bridging, then you can adjust those segments very easily. Here, let's say I wanted to fill this area. We have a bit of a problem though. So it's detected what's called an L patch. And an L patch is in that it has 3 corners. So it has a top corner, the bottom of the L, and the leg of the L. But in this case, I really want to have this bridged right across here. So let's just hold Control-Shift, click on that, and it will automatically mark that as a corner, or unmark it as a corner. And there we are. We've got a nicely filled patch, which I hit F, and that will fill it. Now, this is not very good geometry, so why don't we go back to our polypen tool. Let's grab this, pull it up, and that works much better back here. But now I've got this big old area, so I can just use the polypen tool. While nothing's selected, hold down Control. You notice it's basically hovering over that face, so I can just cut in a new edge, cut in a new edge, cut in a new edge, and that's much better. So now let me get rid of this. Let me select this triangle, and we'll convert it into a quad. And then we'll select just the vertex, and why don't we, why don't we just go up here like this, and then we can go in here and like that. And while this is not perfect geometry, suddenly it's much better than it was before. It's much less dense, and we have some of the topological flow that we need. Now, I still have an extra one here, so we would need to go ahead and fix that. So what I might do is simply bring that down here, and then hit Y, and add a loop, and then go back to polypen and reconnect that. And then simply using Relax, I can bridge these together. I did get a little bit of an error here. That's a little bit of a bug that we will, of course, fix, but that's okay because it's an easy thing to fix. Just like that, like that. And by using the auto merge, it becomes really easy to snap that geometry and clean it up with no issue whatsoever. So that's RetopoFlow 2.0. There's a lot more to show. There's a lot of nuance in here that I can continue to explore for hours on end. The strokes tool in particular is really, really cool. The patches are really cool. The patches, the strokes, polystrips, contours, all of these support symmetry. So as we come in here, we fill it, everything snapped to the center. If I go ahead and let's just select all this and hit X and delete, go back to the contours tool. I have symmetry enabled. I cut across here, and you'll notice that it's snapped right to the symmetry line. I can then rotate that around. I can cut in again, and again, and again, and again, and then again. And that whole time, everything is snapped directly to the surface and makes it really, really easy to, whether you're retopologizing an entire character model like this, if you're retopologizing a basic hard surface model, whatever it is that you're doing, you've got absolute control with a whole variety of tool sets to recreate whatever surface it is that you need. So that is RetopoFlow 2. I hope you like it. It's been a long time coming. We've done a lot of work on it, and there's still a lot left to do, but we're really excited for you to get your hands on it, and we hope to hear what you think. Cheers.